Greetings sailors and welcome to a guest replay featuring Mr. McCavity, Sniper Mike and some guy called, I think it's Claude the Chimp. It's something like that. It's some noob that sent me a replay anyway, and in my infinite munificence I have decided to feature it. This is a tier 9 game and they are in fact top tier, so that's pretty good. Both Clyde and, yeah, I'm not going to keep saying Claude. I think that joke would die a fairly ignoble death quite quickly. It would get old very quickly. They're both in battleships. As you can see, Clyde is in the Sovetsky Soyuz. We've got Sniper Mike in the Fat Freddy, and then the Mogador, which is, of course, at the moment the top of the French destroyer tree. It's not actually the top of the tree, it's just as far as you can get at the moment, because Kleber is still being tested. So this thing, like all of the Soviet battleships, really does perform at its best in a close-up fight. It also, like most of the Soviet battleships, excluding, I think it's is it the Lenin that gets a regular repair party? I can't remember. It's not quite all of them that have the limited use repair party, but most of them do. Anyway, so it means you have to be careful about when you are in fact going to use your repair party. You can't just pop it for every single fire that decides to, you know, ignite your decks. But you couple that with the, of course, you know, limited number of heals, and you have to be quite careful about when you're using both of them, really. So yeah, sometimes you can afford to let a fire burn, but other times you might not, just because you are running low on heals. There's a nice early hit on that Nelson, and of course that is the bane of the Nelson's life, is being down tiered, because when you're down tiered you meet a lot of other battleships that can just pen you anywhere they please, providing the RNG is kind to them. And in this case, even though it was a slightly further away shot, well, 35k damage is not nothing. Now clearly that Vladivostok is tempting him quite a lot, but if you've spotted that Musashi around the corner, then you'll know that thing, of course, itself has very nasty guns. It's got the 18.1 inch guns of the Yamato, just not quite as deadly as the Yamato, but at this kind of range, well, he's taking a bit of a risk sitting this broadside to the Musashi. The Musashi could potentially hit him right now, and although, you know, he's clearly focused on the Vladivostok and the Nelson, it really does require, you know, a bit of luck in the Musashi not noticing him, which, as it turns out, doesn't really work out. So yeah, maybe not 10 out of 10 on awareness there, but considering that's the Musashi's guns, it could have been worse. It definitely could have been worse. This Nelson is thoroughly in trouble though, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to take out the Nelson this early, because of course it does have that monster HE fire chance. So if this is the kill, there we go, another Citadel, then not only is it nice to, well, have secured that kill, but also removes a potentially very nasty fire starter. And not even just a fire starter, those HE shells themselves do quite a lot of damage. Maka has in the meanwhile also gotten a kill in the Mogador. I missed what that was, but talking of fire starters, if you've built that ship for range, it can be an absolute pain in the bum to deal with. Which is why, when I've been talking in past videos about giving the high-tier French destroyers some form of heal, I don't think it should be a crazy strong one by any stretch of the imagination, because that would make it potentially really overpowered. If you could have a destroyer that's running around at 15-16 kilometers, is really hard to hit, and oh yes, it has heal as well. Something in the nature of maybe the Gorozhevoy's heal, where it just keeps you in the action a bit longer, as opposed to being like a, I don't know, baby Minotaur, or what would be the equivalent for a destroyer? Like the Kid, maybe? I can't remember how comparatively strong the kid's heel is. But anyway, I don't think it should be anything like that strong. It's just they need some extra kind of something. Because once you run out of hit points, you're basically done. So double fire, rather than ping his damage control party, he's actually put up a heal instead to eat the damage, and then decides to hit the damage control party anyway, presumably because he's going behind an island and getting a little bit further away from the Atago and the... is it a Dallas? Whatever the American cruiser is that's behind that island. He also got another nice hit into, this time, the Musashi, who keeps giving broadside, which you can't quite afford to do in a Musashi, but now the Musashi is at longer ranges, his chances of replicating that success are a little bit diminished. You always want to be trying to go for the closer targets. I mean, that's generally a good rule of thumb anyway. You're likely to more reliably hit your shots on closer targets, but especially in the Russian battleships, it's just you're just going to do so much better. So that Atago's not looking good. There we go. They're finished off by Mr. McCavity, and well, he's still under some fire here from that American cruiser. Is it the Helena? It will be the Helena, won't it? Because the Dallas is the tier 6. But as long as he doesn't get all of the fires set, then hopefully he won't have to use yet another heal, because he's down to 2 already. He's burned half his heals, and we're only in the opening half of this game. They have, it looks like, quite firmly taken control of this side, though. I mean, that cruiser is the only real pain at the moment. Although he does have to be a bit careful in that he doesn't have the captain's skill that I can never remember the name of, that tells you when people are pointing their guns at you. You'd think I would know it by now, but for some reason I never can remember it. So he's got to be a little bit cautious, because people might be pointing their guns at him, and he wouldn't necessarily know it unless he was checking visually. And so pulling this kind of broadside here is a little bit risky, because that Musashi could have shots, the Bismarck could have shots, and while this is a good bow tanking ship, it doesn't eat shots in the side especially well. It's not like the Iraqi or some of the German battleships, where they are very, very hard to citadel. And even then, they can still take a shed load of ordinary penetration damage. It's the citadels that will get you killed right quick. As it is, though, it looks like they are, in fact, focusing on Sniper Mike, and while the guns on the Fat Freddy are not the best, it can at least manage to tank a fair bit of damage. They are quite survivable, the tier 9 and 10 German battleships, if you're playing them correctly. I mean, it's maybe a bit harder at these tiers with the HE spam than, say, the Bayern, but the guns are a bit better, although a bit better is a relative term. I really do like the tier 10 German battleship, but the tier 9 can be, yeah, it can be a bit of an experience, just as the Gneisenau can. So that's a nice hit into the Vladivostok. He's well above 100,000 damage at this point, and they are now just steadily pressing forwards, although, ooh, ouch. He's clearly now got the focus of that Musashi, although the Vladivostok is continuing to focus on Sniper Mike. Mac has just gone for it in the Mogador with that cruiser, which is sometimes a bit risky, but as it is, he's been able to put his speed to use, just torp that Helena before they could react, and removed that threat entirely. Not that they were much of a threat. I mean, that's a good island to hide behind if you have a US cruiser, or any cruiser with high shell arcs, or destroyer even for that matter. But if you get trapped there by an enemy advance, there's not a lot you can do unless you have torpedoes. So yeah, unless you time your getaway correctly, you get a bit stuck there. So that was a yeah, I mean, there were citadels in there, but that was just a straight up detonation. So that removes the Musashi from the mix. It probably would have only been a couple more salvos to kill kill that Musashi anyway, but still, those are some nasty guns that he now no longer has to worry about, so he can just fully concentrate on this Vladivostok, who hit the border and has now decided to reverse off it because reasons? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. He can't take too much more punishment himself. He's got most of his damage control parties left, but only one heal, and not a huge amount of health that he can heal. However, apart from this Vladivostok, everything else is basically on the other side, and so this game seems, despite the points and despite the fact it's fairly close overall on the number of ships left alive, this game seems to be very firmly now going in this team's favour, because that was their last battleship and all they have left are cruisers and the carrier. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit here whilst Clyde gets the ship around this island. In the meanwhile, they have capped A, and you can see the enemy team is about to conclude capping C. The Mogador is also hunting the Saipan, so he doesn't. Clyde doesn't have to worry about planes really any time at all soon. They're all basically going to be throwing themselves at Maka, and so it's really just these cruisers here. And between Clyde coming in from this side and Sniper Mike steaming in through the middle in his Friedrichsruhe, which, lest we forget, has of course got a German hydro on board, they're basically just closing the pincers at this point. And there we go, we actually get a secondary kill there, a close quarters from Sniper Mike, finishing off that very low health Z46. And although of course both the Rune and the Neptune also have their torps, and there we go, you can actually see the torps coming out, unless Sniper Mike does something really stupid with this hydro in play, which I would guess he had pinged off as he was pushing forwards there, because, you know, it's a destroyer and 2 torpedo-armed cruisers, so why wouldn't you? Yeah, unless he does something really stupid like turn broadside so a whole bunch of torps can slam into him. Even if he takes 1 or 2, he should be fine. Listen, Rune, meanwhile, is feeling Clyde's love. I'm sure they're feeling all kinds of warm and fuzzy, and they've also got the Lexington dropping on them to deal with, although they've managed to dodge some of those, but I think they're going to take 1 of those maybe? Nope, they've managed to turn in on that second drop as well, but all of this is playing quite nicely into Clyde in terms of getting a more flat angle. He does overlead a little bit there, but still manages to get a fairly healthy amount of damage. So between, there we go, the big hit that the Neptune just took from Sniper Mike and this Rune also being now very low health, I mean, they've basically got these 2 cruisers between them. So yeah, so there we go, there's the Rune, and any moment now awkward silence ensues. There we go, there goes the Neptune, and it's actually another close quarters. It's actually one of his secondary guns that gets the killing blow. So 207,000 damage done, some slightly iffy positioning at times, but we can't fault the amount of you know, the damage output. We can't fault the gunnery really. It was more just occasionally giving inappropriate amounts of broadside. So there we go. The remarkable thing about this perhaps is that only 1 other player got a kill. 11 of the 12 enemy team's players were killed by this division. But as you can see, Clyde there, total noob, getting carried by his 2 division mates, only in 3rd place, only with a mere just over 2,000 base XP. I mean, this replay from Clyde's point of view was hardly worth watching really, but anyway, I have in fact given him one of my own replays so he can have his revenge on me, and I'll be sure to put it out on Twitter and Patreon and wherever else when he does that. I'll also put a link in the description to his and Macca's Twitch channels, and the attempt that Clyde had himself at doing this replay, because he's, as I think I mentioned, no, I didn't actually mention, he's doing some more YouTube stuff. He's trying his hand at that a bit more, not just the streaming. I think partly driven out of boredom because he's not been able to stream, so he's been experimenting with what he can do, at least. So yeah, you can go and give that a look-see and hear his thoughts on the match you've just seen, or just check out some of the other stuff he has posted there. So that's it for this replay. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and if you have, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.